In Nigeria, the government of President Muhammadu Buhari has, since assumption of office 6 years ago, been consistent in voicing its desire to check pervasive corruption, especially among the political elite. Remarkably, the seeming inability of the administration to tackle corruption, even within government circles, has been the subject of growing public criticism. Well, joining us now from our Arise Abuja studios to look at this South African situation or developing story and possible lessons that can be drawn by Nigerian authorities is Dr. Sam Amadi, a lawyer, former chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, and a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much, Dr. Sam Amadi, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Well, I guess you listened to my introduction and you've been following the developments in South Africa. First, let us say that this was for contempt of court and not the corruption case itself. But can we draw any lessons from this in Nigeria, or would we be comparing apples and oranges?
I think we will be comparing apples and apples. And there's a lot of lessons to draw. First, if they can hand out this massive penalty for contempt of court, then you can imagine what it will be if in trial he's found guilty of those allegations. So it tells us that the South African Constitutional Court is a strict one, serious, and would not support any form of contempt or impunity. And if flashback to Nigeria, we've got several cases where high-profile persons have either disregarded court orders or even refused to appear. Zuma refused to appear before a commission. Our president did not appear before the Uputa panel and didn't suffer any costs, rather had a lot of political mileage to win election twice. So you can begin to see where South Africa contrasts from Nigeria. It is true that the same paternal or patronage system in Nigeria is still in South Africa. We see a culture of impunity, a culture of corruption among some of the older members of the ANC and typical of African leadership. But again, we see stronger institutions. Rule of law institution is stronger in South Africa, and so you are seeing accountability. You see a media that is also viscerally in support of open governance and accountability. And we see a judiciary that does not mold itself in the image of the ruling elite. So in terms of civil society, in terms of the media, in terms of the judicial system, South Africa has probably a first world system in terms of integrity and independence. Maybe the political leadership in the ANC resembles Nigeria and other African countries, but essentially, in terms of institution, South Africa is different. Another point to bear in mind is that the Ramaphosa's government is a successor to Zuma, the same political party. I was seeing Ramaphosa very strict, very committed, and genuinely focused on fighting corruption and willing to allow the system work in spite of the possible political blowback that he can get in ANC, because Zuma is still very powerful, especially in the KwaZulu-Natal region. So if the ANC leadership can go after a leading figure like Ramaphosa, like Zuma rather, it tells us that Zuma means business, and Zuma understands the importance of curbing South Africa of corruption that is making it difficult to be competitive in attracting foreign investment. Zuma is alleged to have been involved in about $34 to $40 billion worth of corruption, either directly or being named. And so the government recognizes that this is a serious problem. But in Nigeria, it would be difficult to find the same party, taking up its leading lights to trial in the way we are seeing in South Africa. So basically, too many contrasts and too much to learn from South Africa in this matter of fighting corruption.
Okay, Mr. Amadi, yes, too many contrasts, as you say. But then the earlier, analyst pointed out that now they know that they have nowhere to hide. Now they know. This suggests that we're seeing a turn in the tide, perhaps a judicial milestone. So I'd like you to help us. Has the judiciary always been this effective in South Africa?
Yes, good question. If you look at the struggle over right to retroviral drugs for HIV in the earlier days of the HIV pandemic, you see the Constitutional Court of South Africa very strong in terms of advancing socioeconomic rights and taking on the government when civil society groups, especially white civil society group, actually fight back against restrictive health policies and discrimination. So the South African Constitutional Court has been a very progressive one, and its jurisprudence has been activist. So that this decision kind of ties into character with the Constitutional Court. The other provincial courts are not in the same pedigree because the Constitutional Court was a creation post-apartheid to deal with this new constitutional arrangement to cater for a South Africa that was transiting from apartheid to a multi-party plural democracy. And if you look at the South African Constitution again, under divergence, is different from our own because it concretizes the role of the court as a supervisor over the executive and the legislature, and entrenches much more expansive socioeconomic rights scheme for South Africans. So the South African post-apartheid justice rule of law structure was structured to have a constitutional court largely, composed of liberal, white, if you like, South Africans who dilute maybe the mass following and support base of the ANC. So the South African experiment is one of counterbalancing power. The black controls the political space, and then the media and the justice sector is not so much so dominated by black South Africans. So some kind of sensitive balancing, and it plays out in the way the Constitutional Court has been upfront in utilizing judicial review to either expand rule of law freedom for South Africans or checkmate government, and in this case now take on a big African big man, as they say. So primarily it's peculiar to South Africa and shows the level of institutional integrity and independence and how it has been able to manage post-apartheid to create a balance of power, if you like, politically.
Well, this is a strong message from the judiciary, and you say it's peculiar to South Africa. But do you think that Africa is beginning to witness strong institutions rather than strong men, or is it too early to say?
Well, I think, like Africa, it's a mixed message, diversity. In South Africa, I can say that this is a trend. We are from Mandela to Mbeki, Zuma now. Zuma tried to perhaps hold back that momentum, but now we're seeing that the march towards liberal democracy is stronger in terms of institutions. In West Africa, no, we're not seeing strong institutions at all. Whether it is Guinea, whether it's Mali, whether it's Nigeria, we are seeing rather the resurgence of a strong man's politics. So I would say that, yes, South Africa could be an outlier in this direction. There's a progressive sense in which liberal internationalism and liberal institutionalism is taking root. But in the West Africa and other part of Eastern Africa, if you like, even some other South African countries like Zimbabwe and others, we're not seeing democracy consolidate in terms of institution. We are seeing actually a resurgence of power politics, of strongman politics, whether it is in Uganda or Nigeria or Guinea or Mali. That's the story of South Africa is different from what we are seeing there. So I would say mixed bag. Nigeria and others are floundering and getting back to strongman politics. South Africa is moving, even if it's haltingly, but moving towards a much more institutionalized form of liberal democracy.
From your analysis, Mr. Amadi, it suggests that we need to be more deliberate if we actually want to enjoy that kind of success. But just looking at the 5-day ultimatum that was given to Jacob Zuma for for him to comply. And then also there was the promise of the ANC media spokesperson, or Pule Mape, that they would have a response. Are you aware of what the ANC response has been? And then what is your take? How likely is Zuma to comply with this arrest warrant?
First, this is a difficult time for President Ramaphosa because, yes, it's a big score for anti-corruption war. But again, it hits back on the ANC's solidity. Zuma is immensely popular among especially the older cadres in the ANC. Of course, South Africa remains a country with too many regional differences and regional politics. So, like I said, in KwaZulu-Natal region, you could expect some level of pushback. So will Zuma honor this and go to prison for, even if it's symbolic? I really think he may not. So we might expect a play-up of this crisis, and ultimately somebody will be blooded. And I think it will be Zuma and perhaps ANC, because this could cause deepen the division already in the ANC. And that's why the ANC leaders are much more guarded in their reaction. They say they are studying this and they issue a statement, but essentially it's very difficult for them. You don't want the former president to be bruised, but the former president has to go to answer for this case. And again, the government has to, at this point, be consistent in supporting the courts and the commission. So I think the ANC, the Ramaphosa government will try to play dumb on this matter. But ultimately, the crisis will not go away. Zuma may have to serve terms, and that will not be good for the level of political cohesion that ANC expect. But ultimately, it will be good for democracy and rule of law in South Africa. It's a troubled time for the party and for the presidency.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sam Amadi, for sharing your thoughts on the development from South Africa.